soldiers all over the world have traditionally been deployed to a variety of locations, ranging from deepest, darkest forests and scorching barren deserts to blazing war zones and trenches. With such exposure to some of the world's most volatile and secret places, strange things are bound to occur every now and again. But what if one of those missions suddenly took a truly weird turn? The military may be there to protect us, but they themselves have had a few otherworldly encounters over the years. Encounters with a potential enemy, the likes of which have never been fought against before. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 UFO reports involving the military. World War II Airman UFO Encounter. Some of the most terrifying dogfights during wartime were first experienced during the Second World War, with desperate Japanese pilots committing kamikaze just to get a leg up on the war. German fighter planes pushing the boundaries of flight technologies to fly faster and further than previously theorized possible. Underground British factories piecing together advanced fighter jets with dwindling resources for dramatic last stands, and US Air Force pilots holding their own in some of the largest aerial bombers that had ever been constructed in history. All of these advancements failed in comparison, however, to the strange technological advances witnessed by United States Airmen that claimed to have witnessed countless encounters with unidentified flying objects. Described as cigar-shaped rocket-like crafts, on the late November evening back in 1944, the 415th Night Fighter Squadron reported seeing a number of peculiar lights along the Rhine Valley ridge, north of the French-German border. The report detailed that there were about 81 lights in a row that emanated a fiery orange glow. As the Night Fighter Squadron turned to attack the craft, the lights faded and appeared to have disappeared from the region entirely. This was one of a countless number of military reports that described similar-looking unidentified flying objects, with one of the strangest reports being the witness account of Lieutenant Samuel A. Krasny. According to Krasny's report, as he was flying, he noticed a large, wingless cigar-shaped object with a reddish glow floating alongside him just a few yards off the plane's wingtip, seemingly attached by an invisible wire maintaining a perfect distance and speed. Immediately, Krasny went into evasive maneuvers and rolled the plane while dropping down to get away from the craft, only to witness the cigar-shaped object follow his maneuvers perfectly and maintain its position relative to his airplane with perfect cadence. After several minutes of additional maneuvers, Krasny said that the object suddenly faded in color and shot off at an incredible impulse speed away from his craft before disappearing from sight. These lights were later provided the name of Foo Fighters by the airmen witnessed in reference to Smokey Stover's comics that would say, "Where there's food, there's fire," reminiscent of the strange craft's fiery color. Hudson Valley UFO sightings. New York's Hudson River Valley has been a UFO hotspot for years, with countless reports of strange phenomena in the area. Thousands of residents between 1983 and 1986 claimed they had witnessed a large metallic object hovering in the sky. Dennis Sant had worked for the local government for 17 years. On March 17, 1983, while Dennis was at home in Brewster, New York, he spotted something in the sky, describing it as an exceptionally large object. The structure was dark grey, metallic, and was almost silent. The lights were bright as they stood out in the sky, looking like a city of lights. It just paused in the sky. As the object started to move, Dennis Sant expressed a feeling of fright. The thought of how this is moving and who is moving it. A thought of an encounter with something extraterrestrial. Dennis wasn't the only one witnessing such an extraordinary event, however. Just a few miles away on Interstate 84, traffic came to a standstill as commuters left their vehicles in order to catch a glimpse of the same mystery craft. The phenomena that had occurred that night would return after a week had passed. Officer Andy Sadoff of the Newcastle Police was on routine patrol when he also claimed to have witnessed the craft. He stated, "As I set up doing some routine checks looking for speeding cars, I looked up to the sky and saw a series of lights. At first it looked like a plane, quite far away. However, it was very large. The lights were made up of white and green. It approached my vehicle and paused in its tracks and just hovered above. He described a feeling of amazement and awe. Unknowing of the object, but knowing this wasn't something of Earth. With no noise, no sound, no engine, this object was completely silent. It was triangular in shape and was as large as a football field. At the same time Officer Andy Sandoff was looking up at the UFO, another eyewitness report came in. Ed Burns, a computer engineer, was on his way home, commuting along the Taconic Parkway around 10 miles north of Andy Sandoff's location. Ed pulled off the road and joined a group of around 20 other motorists who had also stopped in amazement. Ed and Officer Andy were joined by thousands of other witnesses who all claimed to have seen the same phenomena. Since the thousands of reports which came in throughout the 1980s, there have been countless more ever since, making the Hudson Valley one of the USA's hotspots for UFOs. The Dobbins Air Force Base encounter. We're throwing back the years again to the 1950s, an era of economic boom, consumerism and prosperity in the United States. Whilst the 50s in the States was undoubtedly an era of optimism for many, the country was also paranoid, sleeping with one eye open due to the threat of communism and Cold War posed by the Soviets. This paranoia also opened up avenues for conspiracy theories, and UFOs were high up on that list. Bruce Bleach was a tower operator at Dobbins Air Force Base near Atlanta, Georgia in the 50s. The base was one of a few that were designated as stopping points for top-secret aircraft such as the Blackbird, and therefore staff required security clearance. The base was also a UFO sighting hotspot, so much so they installed a special 3D camera to photograph the craft when they appeared. Special forms also had to be signed when said sightings occurred. As we previously mentioned, the UFO craze was taking hold of America in the 50s, and Beech's first experience with extraterrestrials came when he was only 15. After attending a lecture on the matter, Beech was hooked, and it was around this time where his native Kansas began to play host to a number of not just UFO but actual alien sightings. When he applied to become a controller at Dobbins and underwent his basic training, Beech's instructors explained that sometimes what they thought were UFOs would appear on radar screens and in the skies around the base, and that they'd called in several experts from across the US to try and explain the phenomena. One day, one of Beech's colleagues offered him the chance to see a UFO, claiming that he was a Rosicrucian, somebody who claimed to possess mystical wisdom. Yet, as the colleague had predicted, the night Beech and 20 other employees went to experience the UFOs for themselves, they did so. Beech described them as bright orange lights and noted that 2 fighter jets had been scrambled to pursue the suspected UFOs. Another incident occurred some months later, but this time during the day. A small aircraft that was scheduled to make a routine inspection flight around the base appeared strange to Beech and his colleagues, and upon closer inspection, they saw what they believed was another UFO. Beech recalled, "In varying light and varying angles, one has to sometimes tilt their head to identify the aircraft silhouette and the type of aircraft they are observing. I couldn't see any wings." The UFO sightings didn't end there for Beech and the crew at Dobbins. They occurred again at Dobbins and even in the Arctic when Beech was stationed there for a period of time. These strange, luminous auras in the sky convinced Beech and many others of the existence of UFOs, and he's adamant that they aren't merely just theories. UFOs have been a thing of immense fascination across the world for thousands of years, but Americans were amongst the first to take a continued interest in the phenomena. And when multiple soldiers, those who we trust with keeping us safe, are mind-boggled and ultimately convinced by their own sightings, you can't help but think that there might be something else out there. No matter what your thoughts surrounding these incidents, one thing that can't be ignored is that there are only 2 possible conclusions to make when it comes to repeated UFO sightings, either a truth within the story or false. But what do you make of these UFO reports? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.